drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning?
I'm Paul Bennett, here in Millbridge, Maine. We're located along Maine's Bold Coast, not very far from the U.S.-Canadian border. I just have to make this cut so this will fit into the notch at the stem. This is the chine log. The chine log is now pretty much fit into place. It's just a couple of little places I have to do some trimming, and once I'm satisfied with it, instead of having it temporarily clamped, I will start using adhesive and screws and permanently attaching it. Just going to do a quick walk around. This part here with the chine meets the transom. It's still sticking out proud. I have to come in a little bit more, and I have to cut more out, bring that in some before I commit to the permanent installation. And see, because that's out, it's holding it out away from the collision bulkhead a little bit. Everything else is looking pretty good. Doing a quick walk around. It's just clamped up, and I'm almost ready to permanently install it. And just a minute ago I grabbed the angle. This is sticking out beyond the notch this has to fit into. Once I cut that and I try it, if that fits in there flush, all I have to do is fix the piece at the stern and I'm good to go. See, here's a notch right here for the other side. Perfect. That fits about as well as it needs to. Okay, I took a little bit more out of that notch, and now that fits pretty good. This will all get sanded. I'll get that bevel with my belt sander, so I'll be sanded and proper bevels. That'll be fastened. I can use the adhesive in a screw. Okay, I've successfully installed the Stabbin chine log. Unfortunately, I didn't have to steam bend it. I was able to bend this cold, and I didn't have any cracks or any problems. It bent easily. Now I'm going to start moving on with the others. Everything gets fit the exact same way. Now we see these notches. I'm just going to go ahead and ease those bevels with that little belt sander I have. Do that all the way along. And then I'll just cut in my notches at the stem and back at the transom. Do the same thing I did here. I'll just clamp it up, glue it and screw it, and call it good. Once they're all in, I'll go around with the belt sander and I'll make sure that everything is flush, all the bevels have been sanded down, everything meets, and everything's nice and smooth. And then after that I can start fitting up my plywood hull panels. Whenever working on a larger project, a larger boat such as this, and I'm by myself, I don't have another pair of hands, not only do you have to compromise, you also have to improvise, another important word. And so I'm just going to take this old batten. What I'm doing here, I'm just temporarily clamping it in position. The idea is I want to give myself a ledge. When I put the shear clamp in place, it's very long, it's the length of the boat, and I have to bend it into position and fit it up. It's just going to keep falling. I have no way to hold it in place, and I only have two hands trying to clamp things together. So I'm going to have this, and I'll have a couple more sticking out beyond the hull, so the shear clamp has something to rest on while both of my hands are full. That'll just help me do this when I'm by myself. If I had a helper, it would be a lot easier, but just going to make do with what I have. You can see I have the shear clamp sitting here on these plates I have sticking out. Frees up my hands here. I can put it in an approximate position. I just want to see how this is going to fit up. So for now, I'm just going to stick a clamp in a couple of places and then start bending the shear clamp into a rough position. I just want to get an idea on how this is going to work out. From there, I can decide where I need to make some cuts and so forth. It's just a temporary mock-up at the moment. So everything is clamped in place temporarily, except for this piece here. So what it shows me is I have to come back a few inches on this shear clamp. I had it too far forward. Yeah, not quite long enough, but I have a lot overhanging at the bow. Just have to make a mark. So I'll get a measurement, undo the clamps, and just move it. Even though it seems like a lot of work, it only took a few minutes to clamp this up, especially since I had these cleats to hold the shear clamp for me. I don't mind doing this because I'm going to get a pretty good fit. Once this is in place, I can go ahead and I can trim this as I need to, and I can cut this piece out in here, notch it for the shear clamp to fit into place. Do that easily right in place without having to remove it. And I can check it every now and then to make sure I have a good fit. Once I've done that, all of the notches that go along the shear clamp, I've already beveled, and they're all fitting pretty well. I can go ahead and glue and screw this, but before I do, I'll release maybe halfway down the boat, down to amidships, and have this shear clamp come out. And then I'll go put the adhesive goop in, start bringing it back and clamping it up and putting screws in. Then once that's all fastened, I don't need these clamps anymore. I'll just repeat on the other end. So I went and I moved the shear clamp further aft, and I still have plenty of meat there up the stem. So I draw where I want to make my cutout, trim the end of the stem, and everything is fit back into position, as you can see. Just do a quick little walk around. And so it's starting to take shape. It's important to get all these stringers in place and secured, because before winter comes on, I want to have a good rigid structure. You can see here that I still have a little overhanging, so I can cut that down. So this is going to work out. Everything's clamped up temporarily, and I can notch those ends, trim them, notch them, and then I can start gluing and screwing. This whole starboard side will be complete as far as the stringers go, and then it's just going to be duplicating the other side. It's Wednesday afternoon, October 30th, and I just finished all the stringers, the chines, the shear clamps, that middle stringer. I wanted to have this done last week, but of course the weather kept me from completing it. And even this week, we kept having rainstorms. Oh, it seems like almost every day. And even today was overcast and was sprinkling this morning. But fortunately, I have this cover. The boat's all framed up. It's going to take a little bit of sanding, bringing all the bevels in and making sure I have flat surfaces. But once that's done, I can start putting on the plywood panels, start fitting those up. To have that done soon, if the weather holds out. Here you go. You see all the stringers. Got them on the sides. I've got the keelson. I've got the two struts to support the twin keels. Everything's in. And now it's just a whole lot of planing and a whole lot of sanding before I'm ready to start fitting up plywood panels. Once the panels are on, I have a basic hull.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor?